We've created a special offer just for listeners of the podcast. You can get the book, A World of Creativity, for a special price of $5.98 for paperback, and the Kindle version is only 99 cents. Go to mark-stinson.com to take advantage of this special offer. Tap into your most original thinking. Organize your ideas and create the opportunities to launch your creative work. Unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Unlocking Your World of Creativity. And I really put the emphasis on world in this episode. This podcast, we've traveled all over the world, from Asia and Cambodia to Africa, South Africa, Dubai, Latin America and Argentina and Mexico, and of course all over Europe, Amsterdam, Finland. But this is our first time to stamp our creative passports in Estonia. And my guest is Olesija Saue. Olesija, welcome to the show.
And welcome to Estonia.
It's great to be here. I got off the map. I had to do a geography lesson to see how it's located in the Baltics, right across from Finland and adjacent to Russia now. And it's just a very interesting location. And then I couldn't help but start reading about the rich history of Estonia. But I want to get to all that, but I want to start with your focus in your creative work, and that is creating personal branding. Well, couldn't be a closer topic to my heart. So I'm so glad to have you on the show to talk about it.
Yes, my pleasure. And yes, I'm focusing on personal branding, but I'm also an executive coach. In a nutshell, what I'm doing is looking inside of people, helping them understand who they are, and then maximizing their potential, being authentic, and using their own creativity and potential.
Yes. And it's so interesting that we focus on management skills sometimes, and we take M.B.A. classes or we take executive development classes. But then when it comes to building that personal brand, boy, it's sometimes hard for people to bridge that gap, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely true. And I think one of the main reasons for that are quite significant stereotypes around this topic, because people consider this as bragging or some sort of involvement in a vanity fair. And I would say that for pretty many years, we could do pretty well without doing personal branding, because essentially we all have a personal brand. Jeff Bezos said in 2012 that personal brand is something that people say about you once you have left the room. But within the last couple of years, I would say already decades, with the rise of social media, we don't have just this physical personal brand. We also have our digital twin. And this digital twin can either work for us or it can work against us. And because of this complexity of our personal brand, we need to start working on that, because we want people to know certain things about us before we can actually enter the room. So our digital twin would be creating new opportunities for us, would be opening new doors. And today in this connected world, we can't really do without a digital personal brand.
For sure. And it's so interesting, your perspective, too, of the inside and outside view of us as a brand. I, too, often thought of this self-promotion, or as you say, bragging rights, but you've described it as what other people say, not just what you're putting out, whether it's your work or your social media, but it's what other people might say about your brand. Tell us more about that.
It's actually a combination. Because if we're talking about personal brand, it's a perception that other people have of you, of your personal brand. And we can't obviously force other people to think about us in certain ways, but we can strategically look at our personal brand, our identity, and put to the world the things that are most important for us. So concentrating on our strengths, on our values, on our story, and telling it in a way that it would appeal to our ideal target audience. And in case of personal branding, what really makes a difference and really makes brands memorable is authenticity and also passion. And authenticity can't be faked, but in order for you to be authentic, both offline and online, you have to understand yourself, understand and accept yourself. So not trying to present yourself in a perfect way that nobody would relate to, but playing out to your strengths and also admitting some of your weaknesses. I think that Johnny Depp said that your peculiarities is what really makes you interesting. And yes, when people are thinking about personal branding, quite often focus is on the outside. What social media channels should I be using? What digital strategy should I choose? And etc. But this everything is important, but it comes as a second step, because if you have this inner understanding of yourself, it's very easy to put it into a presentable format, but you have to understand your substance, and you have to build your story around your substance, because if you don't do that, this is just a shallow package without substance, and people quite soon would understand that. And I also see that because social media made this branding so easy, and so you just decide that you are an expert on one topic, you go online, you put your thoughts out there, you do it consistently, 3-6 months, and you're an expert. And there are a lot of people, younger people who are digitally savvy, who are ready to be visible. They just use this opportunity. And perhaps they don't have years of experience, much of the knowledge, but they are present and they create their presence for certain audiences. And at the same time, we have a lot of people who have tens of years of experience, knowledge, but they are not present. They are not visible in the digital world. And it creates a paradox that you have a lot of people with actual real world experience not being present on social media. And on another side, you have brands which are created in digital space. And because they are so visible and so credible on those platforms, they go into the real world. And they start to really compete with so-called real experts.
Yes, such a good observation. Olesija, I think about the first time I maybe heard this term personal branding was many years ago with Tom Peters. And you're talking about the skills and the proof of your personal brand and of your stature there. But he also mentioned it's your work, it's your portfolio of successes. You can't just say you're good at something and, like you said, present yourself as an expert if you haven't done the work and you don't have the case studies. I think, but he called them your portfolio. I wondered if you had some experience with that direction.
Yes, absolutely. That's important. Of course, one thing is what you are saying about yourself, what your personal brand is, and the way that you position yourself, and the keywords that you are using for people to remember about you. But then comes the credibility part. And to a certain extent, you would build your credibility if you talk about a certain subject, assuming that you're doing a good job, so we are not really just saying irrelevant stuff. But at the same time, you need to present third parties confirmation of your expertise, all of different testimonials, case studies with the customers, also traditional media exposure, all of the things that traditional PR is doing. But nowadays, social media just makes it so much easier, and this process so much faster, because before social media, it would take you 20 years to gain the experience, and then you would be as a recognized expert on the subject. Nowadays, it's a bit twice worse. Build your platform, your own platform. You get the following, you get the customers, and then the confirmation comes afterwards. So especially if we're talking about experts, real professionals, they have to understand the rules of the game. It's not enough that that you are the best in the world if nobody knows about you. You have to both work on your, I call it substance, so who you are and then what is the work that only you can do for your customers, but also being visible to your audience. And it's also important to understand that if we're talking about strong personal brand, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a household brand name like Oprah or Richard Branson or Elon Musk. In a professional environment, quite often we just need a very focused target audience to know about us. And if we become top of mind for this audience, we would create awesome relationships and we have a queue of customers. Household brand name, it's good, but it's really not for everyone. And not all of people, majority of people actually don't need that to have a strong personal brand to be successful in their business.
No, very good. And thinking about your own portfolio and your own successes, I look back and see that you were part of the executive and leadership team that brought the brand of business publication Forbes to Estonia. And I was thinking about that as a brand platform. And I was wondering if you could share with us your experience in really creating and bringing that brand to your market.
It was very interesting experience, and from that experience, it was actually not only in Estonia but also in Latvia and then later in Finland. You could see how different markets receive brands, because if we're talking about Forbes, then on a global scale and business environment, Forbes is a very strong, very credible brand. For local markets in Estonia, the brands, even strong brands that are coming outside of Estonia, are not of that big significance. So we saw that, for example, for Latvia, it was already very good credibility that this is Forbes. Whatever you do, and guys on the local markets, you are mostly doing a good job. It was pretty same thing in Finland, but in Estonia, nobody really cared about the big brand. We had to really put in a lot of work to present the brand in a way that it would also work the local markets. Yes, obviously the market knew what this brand is, but more important was to really see local people leading the brand in a way that local market would be far as a proper business practice, and also bringing in success stories from the local market, which once again is very interesting also from a personal branding perspective, because quite often before sharing our stories, we try to get to the end of our hero journey. Once I'm at the top, I will be entitled to share my story. And then quite many people really putting aside their stories till once I retire. But I see that people can't relate to success stories which are way ahead of them. In case of personal brands, really big names, globally recognized. But what really appeals to people are brands and success stories which are local, which are relatable, and which are perhaps just a couple of steps ahead. You can get more value out of this story and also get some practical steps that you can apply in your life.
And maybe that leads us to a discussion about Estonia as a business market. Very technology driven, very growth in industry, and a real leader in Europe.
Yes, I would say that Estonia,
even despite its size, I mean, relatively small.
I think that it's because of Estonia's size and also because of our neighbor, because I think that pretty many innovations actually come from need for security.
Yes.
So it is the same with Estonia. And if we're looking at Estonians' development after becoming independent in 1991, we had nothing. So in this respect, we straight away went to the technology that existed at that point and started to build from there. But at the same time, other countries in Europe and then also globally, they already had some level of technology, and they were because of that, really lacking new ways to do business. And in this respect, Estonia, being a small country, had to be ambitious, had to be proactive, and Estonians are very hard working people. And I consider this part of my job also to teach them to share their successes with the world, because Estonians are also very modest.
Yes. As you might know from my background, even my virtual background, that we're talking on video here, I love to have just simple sort of one-on-one and small group coffee conversations. If I came to Estonia and we had some coffee conversations about what's going on in life and creative environment around us, what sort of things would we talk about? Who might be with us at that coffee?
You would absolutely love. There are very many different lovely coffee places in Tallinn, in capital of Estonia, and also in smaller towns and the countryside. People are very welcoming, and when it comes to creativity, then Estonia's nature is one of truer sources of inspiration. Estonia is very beautiful forestry country. It's the size of Belgium, but in Belgium they have 50 million people living on the same territory, and we have just 1.3 million. So we have a lot of free space, and connection to nature, I would say, is a way that Estonians get inspiration, charge it, and otherwise we're connected to the rest of the world.
Very nice. It reminds me of my own home state here in the U.S., Idaho. I think we only have 1.5 or 6 million people. So we have lots of room to enjoy nature, as you say. And how does that combination of nature, but also technology and business, but has such a storied history of Estonia as well? And I'm sure that the architecture, the museums, and the history that surround you as well. How does all that influence your own personal creativity? How does that inspire you?
Yes, I think that Estonia has so many multiple levels. If we take capital, Tallinn, for example, and it's a real mixture of medieval town. It's under UNESCO protection. It is really a gorgeous small town with a lot of history. Every building is telling a story. And then 100 meters from the old town, you have new offices and different startup companies. I think in essence, if I'm thinking what creativity is, it really helps to be in such environments where you can take the things that have been there, put them into a new perspective, and then come up with something new. And I think also that curiosity is what could be a common keyword to describe people here in Estonia. All of the innovations in IT, they're really all sparked by curiosity and desire to do something different. If I'm looking at the way that they're teaching at schools, my son is 7 years old, so he just started in school already in the first grade. They put a lot of focus on children maintaining this curiosity and coming up with the new ideas and projects. And it's actually unbelievable how small children are doing that. And I think that it is very important that we help children to keep this childish curiosity, which will eventually lead to creativity in an adult life.
I hope so. It's very encouraging to know that they're doing that in your school, in your son's school. I think that might turn the page then to look ahead to the future. It is very exciting. I don't know when your son graduates from high school, but it's going to be a while. So I look into the future and look into that crystal ball. Many people say that the jobs of the future aren't even created yet, that we don't even know what the future might hold. But as you look over the horizon from a personal development and building our own brands, what do you see for the future?
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And this is one of the ways that I've chosen the school for my child, so that I don't know what knowledge would he need in 10 years when he finishes school. But I'm quite certain that creativity, and the topic of your podcast, would be one of very important skills. And from the personal branding perspective, I think that we would see, obviously, we would see our merge, even a bigger merge of digital and physical spaces. And I think that we would need more and more of those authentic relationships, which are only possible through personal branding. So we've seen this over last 10, 20 years, that brands are more trustworthy than corporate brands. Forbes research actually shows that within the last 20 years, credibility of corporate brands has decreased by almost 50%. I believe that we would still see the same trend, because in the digital world, we are all connected, and we want to keep and perhaps enhance those relationships that we have with people offline. And I think that it would be some kind of a hybrid, where we would perhaps initiate the discussions, conversations, and relationships online. Then we'll take them offline and then bring them back to the digital world. Yeah, that's the way that I see the future. And perhaps we would have some kind of personal brands on Metaverse.
You never know. Yeah, I like that. Thanks for painting that picture of the future. And Olesija, I want to make sure, I have a question about the future as well, but I want to make sure that we pause here and let people know how to connect with you and learn more about your work. Your book, A Brand Named You.
Yes, the book, The Brand Named You, is a very practical guide consisting of 100 steps to take from understanding your personal brand to actually building your strategy and executing it. And you can find it on Amazon. And the best way to connect with me is on where I talk about personal branding, about executive branding, brand ambassadors, and employee advocacy, and all things related to our potential as humans and individuals, and how we can truly be ourselves, but at the same time impact the world in the best possible way.
Yes. Listeners, I encourage you to connect with Olesija on LinkedIn, and I'll put the link in the show notes so you'll be able to find her LinkedIn profile. Olesija, one of the themes across this podcast with all sorts of creators, from musicians and authors and painters and artists of all kinds, has been collaboration. And sometimes I think when we might think of personal brand, we only think of ourselves. And you've talked about internal qualities or inner qualities, and certainly our work. But no creative project gets off the ground without collaborators or a team or some sort of team around you. Tell us how we reconcile that, or how that fits into our personal brand strategy.
Yeah, there are a lot of different parts to personal branding, pretty much the same way that we would be building a corporate brand. So we always have to start with a strategy, so that we know what our goal is and then where we're heading. And there is a lot of, so I kind of see personal branding nowadays as a combination of self-development and coaching on one side, and then marketing and sales on another side. When I'm working with my clients, I'm doing a lot of digging on the executive side, and the better this job is done, the easier it is on the marketing side, because with personal branding we quite often run into different fears, blocks, imposter syndrome, and publicity fear, and everything that comes along. And if we sort all of those things out, then we really can go out there and can own our own story and really put ourselves out there. Because and yes, for that you can quite often need a team of people who would be assisting you, or in it video production, copywriting, design, and things like that. But yeah, I think that once again, that it all starts from within, because otherwise there are very many things that can be done which fall into the category of personal branding. There are very certain building blocks, so to say, that lay the foundation for long-term success. And also, if we're talking about cooperation, helps us attract the ideal customers, ideal partners, ideal employees, because, without wasting our time and their time.
Very good. Listeners, my guest has been Olesija Saue from Estonia. She is an expert in personal branding and executive development. She's the author of a great book called A Brand Named You. Olesija, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And listeners, come back again next time. We'll continue our around the world travels. We'll be stamping our creative passports in places like Chicago and Mexico and the Netherlands and all points in between in coming episodes. And we'll continue to talk to experts about how they get inspired and how they organize those ideas, and most of all, how they gain the confidence and the connections to launch their work out into the world. So until next time, I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll be unlocking your world of creativity.
Unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This program was produced by BSB Media, creators of IntelliKey Leadership Stories, Unlocking Your World of Creativity, and thepeaceroom.love. If you like this podcast, here's another show that you'll like from BSB Media, The Patients Speak, Healthcare Innovations Accelerating the Patient Journey. It features interviews with healthcare leaders, patient advocates, medical providers, and researchers. Presented by 83 Bar. Look for The Patients Speak on your favorite podcast app.